The traveling rodeo had come to Ridgefield, bringing with it excitement and the promise of entertainment for the isolated ranching community. It was 1880, and events like this were rare enough that the entire town turned out to watch the bronc riding, roping competitions, and horse races that would span 3 days. Ethan Cross had ridden into town specifically for the rodeo. At 35, he was a successful rancher from a neighboring county, known for his skill with horses and his fair dealings. He owned 3,000 acres and ran a profitable cattle operation, but success had brought him little personal happiness. He had been so focused on building his ranch that he had never married, never built a family, and now he found himself wondering if material success was enough. He sat astride his black stallion, watching the festivities with mild interest, when he noticed the commotion near the entrance gate. A young woman, perhaps 28, was arguing with the ticket master. She wore a green dress that had been carefully mended in several places, and she held the hand of a boy who looked to be about 6 years old. The boy was pointing excitedly at the rodeo arena, clearly desperate to see the show. His face was lit up with childish wonder, the kind of pure excitement that only happens when something special is about to occur. "I told you." "Ma'am, it is 50 cents per person," the ticket master was saying loudly, drawing the attention of passers-by. "No exceptions, no discounts. That is the rule." "I have 25 cents, the woman said, her voice strained but trying to maintain dignity. "Could my son go in for that?" "I will wait outside. I do not need to see it. But he has been looking forward to this for weeks." "Rules are rules," the ticket master said dismissively. "Either pay full price for both or move along. You are blocking the entrance, and I have paying customers waiting." The boy's face fell, devastation replacing the joy that had been there moments before. The woman's shoulders sagged with defeat. Ethan watched as she knelt down to speak to her son, clearly trying to explain why they could not go in despite the promise she had apparently made. "But Mama, you said we could see the horses," the boy said, his voice breaking. "You said if I was good all week we could come." "I know, sweetheart," the woman said, her own voice thick with emotion. "But I do not have enough money. I am sorry. I thought I did, but I was wrong." "I do not care about the horses," the boy said, suddenly fierce. "I do not want you to be sad, Mama." The woman pulled her son into a hug, and Ethan saw her shoulders shaking with silent tears. Something about the scene troubled Ethan deeply. The careful way the woman was dressed, the obvious effort she had made to bring her son to this event, the dignity with which she accepted disappointment, even as it broke her heart. This was not a woman who was lazy or irresponsible. This was someone doing her best with very little, someone who had probably sacrificed other necessities to save even the 25 cents she had. Ethan dismounted and approached them. "Excuse me, ma'am." "I could not help but overhear. Would you and your son permit me to purchase your tickets?" The woman stood quickly, her face flushing with embarrassment at being overheard. "That is very kind, sir, but I cannot accept charity from strangers." "It is not charity," Ethan said, thinking quickly. "I am here alone, and frankly, rodeos are much more enjoyable when watched with others, especially with a young man who clearly loves horses. Consider it a favor to me. I would appreciate the company." The woman looked at him skeptically, clearly trying to determine his motives. She had obviously learned to be wary of men offering help. Her son tugged on her sleeve. "Mama, please. I want to see the horses. And the man looks nice." The woman's expression softened as she looked at her son, seeing the hope rekindled in his eyes, then back at Ethan, assessing him carefully. "Very well, but only if you allow me to repay you somehow. I can sew or do laundry or—" "Your company is payment enough," Ethan said, and stepped forward to pay the ticket master for all 3 of them before she could protest further. The ticket master smirked as he took Ethan's money. "Generous of you, mister. Hope you know what you are getting yourself into." Ethan ignored the comment and turned back to the woman and her son. "Shall we find good seats?" Once inside, they found places on the wooden benches overlooking the arena. The boy was beside himself with excitement, bouncing and pointing at everything. The riders warming up their horses, the bulls in the pens, the colorful banners strung around the arena. "I am Ethan Cross," Ethan said, offering his hand to the woman. "Catherine Brennan," she replied, shaking his hand briefly. Her grip was firm, the hand of someone used to hard work. "And this is my son, Samuel. Pleased to meet you both. Samuel, have you ever been to a rodeo before?" "No, sir," Samuel said, his eyes wide. "But my papa told me about them before he went to heaven. He said cowboys could ride anything, even the wildest horses." "Your papa was right," Ethan said gently. "You are about to see some remarkable riding." As the rodeo began, Samuel's enthusiasm was infectious. He cheered for every rider, gasped at every near miss, and asked endless questions about the horses and the riders. Ethan found himself enjoying the boy's wonder more than the actual events. It reminded him of what it was like to see the world with fresh eyes, to find joy in simple things. Catherine watched her son with obvious love, but also with a sadness that Ethan recognized. It was the look of a parent who wanted to give their child everything but knew they could provide so little. During a break between competitions, Catherine spoke quietly while Samuel was distracted by a trick rider. "Thank you for this, Mr. Cross. Samuel has been asking to come to the rodeo for weeks. His father used to talk about cowboys and ranching, and Samuel has romanticized it all. I have been saving pennies for 2 months, but I did not quite have enough." "Where is Samuel's father?" Ethan asked, then immediately regretted the intrusive question. "I apologize. That is none of my business." "It is all right," Catherine said, though her voice tightened. "My husband James died 2 years ago. Accident at the sawmill where he worked. A chain broke and a load of logs fell. He was killed instantly." She paused, collecting herself. "Since then, Samuel and I have been managing on our own. James did not have life insurance. The mill gave me $50 and told me I had to leave the company housing. We have been living in a small room above a shop in town. I take in sewing and laundry. It is not much, but it keeps us fed and sheltered." "That must be incredibly difficult," Ethan said. "It is," Catherine admitted. "But Samuel makes it worth it. He is all I have left of James, and I am determined to give him a good life, even if I cannot give him an easy one." As the afternoon wore on, Ethan found himself genuinely enjoying Catherine and Samuel's company. Catherine was intelligent and quick-witted, and despite her circumstances, she had not lost her sense of humor. When a particularly arrogant rider was thrown by his horse, she murmured, "Pride goes before a fall," and Ethan found himself laughing genuinely for the first time in months. Samuel was a bright, curious child who reminded Ethan of himself at that age. The boy asked thoughtful questions about the horses, wanted to know how the riders trained, wondered if he could ever be a cowboy. Ethan found himself giving serious answers, treating the boy with the same respect he would show an adult. "Could I really be a cowboy someday?" Samuel asked at one point. "If you work hard and learn everything you can about horses and ranching, absolutely," Ethan said. "Cowboys are not born, Samuel. They are made through practice and dedication." Samuel's face lit up with determination. "Then I will work hard. I will be the best cowboy ever." When the rodeo ended and the crowd began to disperse, Ethan walked with Catherine and Samuel toward the town center. He found himself reluctant for the day to end, surprised by how much he had enjoyed their company. As they approached a shabby building that served as a boarding house, Catherine stopped. "This is where we are staying," she said. "Just for tonight. We live about 10 miles from here, but it was too far to walk there and back in one day. The rodeo runs for 3 days, but we can only afford to stay one night and see one day of events." Ethan noticed the nervous way Catherine glanced at the boarding house, a flicker of fear crossing her face before she composed herself. The building was run down and it had a reputation. It was the kind of establishment where single women were assumed to be of questionable character, and where men felt emboldened to make unwanted advances. "Is everything all right?" Ethan asked, picking up on her tension. Catherine hesitated, then spoke quietly so Samuel would not hear. "When I checked in this morning, the proprietor, a man named Dalton, he made it clear what he thought of a woman staying here alone with a child. He suggested that if I could not pay full price for the room, there were other ways I could earn my keep." Her face burned with humiliation as she continued. "I told him I would pay full price. I had just enough money saved for the room and our tickets home tomorrow. But Mr. Cross, I am afraid that once night falls and he has been drinking, he might not take no for an answer. I have seen the way he looks at me. I have seen how he treats the other women staying here." Ethan felt anger rising in his chest, a hot fury at the injustice of it all. "That is completely unacceptable. You should not have to deal with that kind of treatment." "I know," Catherine said tiredly. "But what choice do I have? This is the only boarding house I can afford. The nicer places cost 3 times as much and would not accept me anyway without a husband. And I cannot walk 10 miles in the dark with Samuel. The roads are not safe at night." She looked at Ethan with desperate eyes, seeming to come to a decision. "Mr. Cross, I know we just met. I know this is highly inappropriate and forward. But could I ask you for one more favor? The biggest favor of all?" "What do you need?" Ethan asked. Catherine took a deep breath. "Could you pretend to be my husband? Just for tonight? Just long enough to check into the boarding house with me and make it clear that I am not unprotected? That I have a man who will defend me if necessary?" She rushed on before Ethan could respond, the words tumbling out. "I am not asking you to actually stay in the room. Just to be seen with me, to sign the register as my husband, to make it clear to Dalton that I am a married woman with a husband who will not tolerate anyone bothering me. After that you can leave town, and I will be safe for the night. By morning, Dalton will be sober and less bold, and Samuel and I can leave safely." Ethan looked at this woman who was trying so hard to maintain her dignity and protect her son, and he made a decision. "I will do better than that," Ethan said. "I will check us into a room as a family, and I will stay in the hallway outside your door all night. If anyone tries to bother you, they will have to go through me first." Catherine's eyes widened in shock. "Mr. Cross, I cannot ask you to do that. To spend the night in a hallway, uncomfortable and unable to sleep properly, just to protect strangers." "You are not asking. I am offering," Ethan interrupted gently. "And Catherine, you are not strangers to me anymore. Not after spending the afternoon together. And more importantly, no woman should have to bargain for basic safety. No one should have to fear for their well-being in a place where they have paid for shelter. Let me help." Catherine looked at him searchingly, trying to determine if she could trust him, if this was real or if there was some hidden expectation. Whatever she saw in his face must have reassured her, because she finally nodded, her eyes filling with grateful tears. "Thank you, Mr. Cross. This means more than you could possibly know." They approached the boarding house together, Ethan carrying Samuel on his shoulders while the boy laughed with delight. The proprietor, a greasy man named Dalton with yellowed teeth and liquor on his breath even in late afternoon, looked up as they entered. His eyes went from Catherine to Ethan, and his expression soured. "Well, well, Mrs. Brennan," Dalton said with a leer. "I see you found yourself a companion for the evening. Guess you had money for a man, but not for a proper room, eh?" "This is my husband, Ethan Brennan," Catherine said firmly, linking her arm through Ethan's with only a slight tremor in her hand. "He was delayed on the road and arrived later than expected. We would like to check into our room now." Ethan placed his hand over Catherine's, feeling her tension, and played along smoothly. "That is right. My horse threw a shoe 20 miles out, and it took longer than I expected to get here. I apologize to my wife for worrying her. Now, we would like our room. I want to make sure my wife and son have a safe, comfortable place to sleep tonight. I trust that will not be a problem." The change in Dalton's demeanor was immediate and dramatic. "Of course not, Mr. Brennan. No problem at all. Let me get your key. Room 7, top of the stairs. Very nice room, very clean." Once in the room, Catherine sat down on the bed and put her face in her hands, her whole body shaking with relief. "Thank you. I was so worried about tonight. I barely slept at all last night, listening for footsteps in the hall, praying he would not try something." "You are safe now," Ethan said firmly. He looked around the small, shabby room with its single narrow bed, peeling wallpaper, and cracked window. "I will wait in the hallway. If you need anything at all, just call for me. I will be right outside." "Mr. Cross," Catherine said, looking up at him with tears streaming down her face. Why are you doing this? You have already done so much for us today. The tickets, the protection, now this. You owe us nothing. We are nothing to you." Ethan thought about how to answer, wanting to be honest. "My mother was widowed when I was 8 years old. My father was killed by a runaway horse cart in town. For 2 years after his death, she struggled to support me and my younger sister alone. We went hungry some nights. We moved from place to place as landlords raised the rent or tried to take advantage of her." He sat down in the chair across from Catherine. "She faced the same kind of treatment you are facing. Men who saw her vulnerability as an opportunity, landlords who tried to extort favors in lieu of rent, employers who underpaid her because they knew she was desperate, a world that judged her for not having a man to protect her even though her situation was not her fault." Ethan's voice grew softer. "A neighbor, a good man named Henry Walsh, he saw what was happening. He helped us. He made sure people knew that my mother was under his protection, that anyone who mistreated her would answer to him. He gave her honest work at fair wages and treated her with respect. He probably saved our lives. My mother eventually remarried, a good man who loved her, and my sister and I grew up safe. But I never forgot Henry Walsh and what he did for us." He met Catherine's eyes. "So no, Catherine, you do not owe me anything. I am just paying forward a debt of gratitude to a man who helped my family when we needed it most. If I can help you the way Henry helped us, then his kindness continues to matter long after he is gone." Catherine wiped her eyes. "Your mother was fortunate to have such a neighbor, and Samuel and I are fortunate to have met you today." That night, Ethan sat in the hallway outside Catherine's door. It was uncomfortable, the wooden floor hard beneath him, but it was worth it to know that Catherine and Samuel were safe. He could hear their muffled voices through the door as Catherine sang Samuel to sleep, a lullaby that spoke of better days to come. Around midnight, Ethan heard heavy footsteps on the stairs. Dalton appeared, clearly drunk, swaying as he walked. When he saw Ethan sitting there, he stopped short, confusion crossing his face. "What are you doing out here, Brennan? Your wife, not letting you in the room?" He laughed at his own crude joke. "Guarding my family," Ethan said calmly, his voice pleasant, but his eyes hard. "Making sure no one disturbs them. You know how it is when you have a wife and child to protect. You do whatever it takes." Dalton peered at him in the dim light of the hallway lamp. "You planning to sit out here all night?" "If necessary," Ethan replied. "I am a light sleeper anyway, and I would hate for anyone to accidentally disturb my wife. I can be quite protective when it comes to my family's safety." The message was clear, and Dalton was sober enough to understand the implicit threat. He muttered something under his breath about crazy people and turned back down the stairs, his footsteps heavy and uneven. Ethan settled back against the wall, satisfied. He dozed lightly, waking at every sound, but the night passed without further incident. In the morning, Catherine and Samuel emerged, both looking rested and safe. Catherine's eyes were red, as if she had been crying, but she smiled when she saw Ethan still sitting there, rumpled and tired, but present. "You stayed all night. You actually stayed." "I said I would," Ethan replied simply, standing and stretching his stiff muscles. "Most men would have left once they were sure we were locked in safely," Catherine said softly. "But you stayed. You kept your promise even when it cost you a comfortable night's sleep." "Some promises are worth keeping," Ethan said. They had breakfast together at a small cafe, the only decent place to eat in town. Over eggs and bacon, they talked more. Catherine told Ethan about her life, about growing up on a small farm, about meeting James at a church social and knowing immediately he was the one she would marry. She told him about the joy of Samuel's birth and the devastation of James's death. "I thought my life was over when James died," Catherine admitted. "Not just because I lost the man I loved, but because I could not see how I would survive. How would I support myself and a baby? I had no skills, no education beyond basic reading and writing. My family had died of cholera 2 years before, so I had no one to turn to. She looked at Samuel, who was focused on eating every bite of his breakfast. But then I looked at Samuel, and I knew I had to find a way. I had to survive for him. So I learned to sew properly, learned to take in laundry, learned to scrimp and save every penny. It has been hard, so hard some days I wanted to give up. But then Samuel smiles at me, or tells me he loves me, and I remember why I am fighting. Ethan felt a deep respect for this woman who had faced devastating loss and had chosen to keep going for her child's sake. You are stronger than you know, Catherine. Some days I do not feel strong, she admitted. Some days I feel like I am barely holding on. That is when you are strongest, Ethan said. When you keep going even when you feel like you cannot. That takes more courage than anything else. As they prepared to part ways, Ethan found himself reluctant to say goodbye. He had only known Catherine and Samuel for less than 24 hours, but they had made an impression on him that he could not shake. Catherine, Ethan said as they stood outside the cafe, I know we just met. I know this is forward. But I meant what I said about enjoying your company. Would you permit me to write to you? To perhaps visit when I am in this area on business? Catherine looked surprised, her eyes widening. Mr. Cross, you do not have to feel obligated to continue this charade. You have done more than enough for us. You do not owe us anything more. It is not a charade, Ethan said earnestly, and I am not offering out of obligation. Catherine, I genuinely enjoyed talking with you yesterday and this morning. I admire your strength and your devotion to your son. You are intelligent and kind, and I would like to get to know you better, if you are willing to give me that chance. Catherine studied him for a long moment, searching his face for any sign of deception or ulterior motive. Mr. Cross, I need you to understand something before I answer. I'm not looking for charity or rescue. I am not looking for a man to save me. If you are interested in knowing me, it needs to be because you see me as an equal, as a person worthy of respect, not as a charity case to be pitied. I do see you as an equal, Ethan said honestly. Catherine, you are one of the strongest people I have met. You have survived loss and hardship that would have broken many people, and you have done it while maintaining your dignity and raising a wonderful son. That is not something to pity. That is something to admire. Catherine's expression softened. Very well, Mr. Cross. You may write to me. And if you are ever in the area, we would be happy to see you again. Samuel seems quite taken with you. And what about his mother? Ethan asked with a slight smile. Is she taken with me as well? Catherine blushed but smiled back. Perhaps. Time will tell. Over the following months, Ethan and Catherine corresponded regularly. His letters were thoughtful and respectful, asking about her life, sharing details of his own, never pressing for more than she was willing to give. Catherine's letters in return were warm and increasingly open, sharing her thoughts and dreams, her struggles and small triumphs. Ethan visited as often as his ranch responsibilities allowed, sometimes spending a whole weekend in town. He always stayed at a respectable hotel and courted Catherine properly, taking her and Samuel for walks, to church socials, and once to a small traveling theater production that left Samuel wide-eyed with wonder. He got to know Samuel better, taking the boy riding on gentle horses, teaching him about ranching and animals, treating him with the patience and respect that James would have shown his son. Samuel flourished under the attention, and Catherine watched with gratitude as her son gained confidence and joy. You are good with him, Catherine said one afternoon as they watched Samuel practicing with a rope, trying to learn to make a lasso like Ethan had shown him. He is a good boy, Ethan replied. Smart, kind, eager to learn. Any man would be proud to have him as a son. Catherine looked at him carefully. Is that what you want, Ethan? To have him as a son? To have us as your family? Ethan turned to face her fully. Yes, that is exactly what I want, if you will have me. 6 months after they met, Ethan proposed to Catherine properly. He came to town with a ring he had commissioned from a jeweler in the county seat, a simple gold band with a small but genuine diamond. They were walking by the river, Samuel running ahead and tossing stones into the water, when Ethan stopped and took Catherine's hands. Catherine, 6 months ago you asked me to pretend to be your husband for one night. But the truth is, I have not been pretending for a long time now. These past months of getting to know you, of watching you with Samuel, of learning who you are beyond that desperate moment we met, I have fallen in love with you." He pulled out the ring. "I love your strength and your kindness. I love the way you fight for your son and refuse to be defeated by circumstances. I love your intelligence and your humor. I love you, Catherine, and I love Samuel. I want to be your husband for real. Not as a pretense for one night, but as a commitment for a lifetime. Will you marry me?" Catherine had tears streaming down her face. "Ethan, I love you too. But I need to know, are you sure? I come with nothing but myself and my son. No dowry, no family connections, nothing of material value." "You come with everything that matters," Ethan said. "Strength, integrity, love, and a son who is already like my own. Catherine, when I was building my ranch, I thought success meant having land and money and respect. But I was wrong. Success is having people you love. People who make your life meaningful. You and Samuel, you are my success. You are what makes everything I have built matter." He opened the ring box. "So please marry me. Be my wife. Let me be Samuel's father and let us build a family together." "Yes," Catherine whispered. "Yes, Ethan. I will marry you." They married 2 months later in the small church in town, with Samuel proudly serving as ring bearer. Catherine wore a simple but beautiful dress that Ethan had commissioned from a talented seamstress, insisting that she deserved something new and lovely for her wedding day. Samuel gained not just a stepfather, but a father who loved him as his own. Ethan legally adopted Samuel, giving him the cross name and all the rights of a natural-born son. Catherine became not just a rancher's wife, but Ethan's true partner, managing the household and eventually helping expand their ranching operation with her sharp mind for business and her natural way with people. They had 3 more children over the years, 2 daughters and a son, but Samuel was never treated differently than the children Ethan helped create. They were all his children, all equally loved, all part of the family they had built together. Years later, when people would ask how they met, Ethan and Catherine would smile at each other with the understanding that comes from years of partnership. "She asked me to pretend to be her husband for one night," Ethan would say. "And he said yes," Catherine would continue. "He protected us when we were vulnerable, and he never asked for anything in return. But I got everything," Ethan would finish. "A wife I love, a son I am proud of, and a family I would not trade for all the land in the territory. Because sometimes one night's promise becomes a lifetime's commitment. Sometimes pretending to be someone's husband teaches you that you want to be their husband for real. And sometimes the greatest love stories begin not with romance, but with one person simply choosing to protect another, expecting nothing in return except the knowledge that they did the right thing. And that simple choice to help, to protect, to stand guard in a hallway all night for strangers who needed safety, that choice can grow into something beautiful. A family built not just on blood but on commitment. A love built not just on passion but on respect and partnership. A life built not just on what you have, but on who you choose to be and who you choose to love. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales of unexpected love, protection offered freely, and the families we choose to build. Comment below about what this story meant to you. Thank you for listening and for believing in the power of showing up for people who need help.